So, hello and welcome to another one of these monthly lives that I've been doing for, I guess, the best part of the last 3 years, since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, where I try to talk to Ukrainian teachers of English to help people outside of Ukraine get a better understanding of what's happening in the country, how Russia's war on Ukraine is affecting teachers and just normal everyday people there, and to help amplify Ukrainian voices at a critical moment where I think it's very obvious, to me at least, that the one thing that's stopping a wider war in Europe at the moment is Ukrainian resistance and resilience. And as we see Trump siding increasingly with Putin, and the Americans not only walking away from helping Ukraine, but actively trying to help the aggressor state, I think it's more important than ever that people in Europe and people around the world understand what Ukraine is fighting for and what's at stake here. I've often said before on social media that as Ukraine goes, so will go the world, basically. If we want to see the world slipping into a kind of authoritarian dictatorships, then, Ukraine falling will facilitate that and speed that up. If we want to see resilient democracies where people understand the price of freedom, then supporting Ukraine will help that. As you may have seen, it's been a pretty shocking week for Ukraine. As the kind of front line basically is very, very stable, essentially. Despite the fact Russia is throwing huge numbers of people into the meat grinder and losing killed and injured around 1,000 soldiers a day. The front line is basically unchanged. Russia's making very little headway on the front line, and is doing so at great cost, both human and material. It's very much reliant on North Korean and Iranian technology at the moment, and up to a point North Korean troops as well. So while the front line is basically fairly stable, Russia's main tactic seems to be to carry out terror attacks on Ukrainian civilians, like the appalling attack this week in Kiev. There was also another attack in the Dnipro Oblast, where a bus was hit. There was the attack on Palm Sunday that killed Ukrainian civilians, and just ongoing missile attacks in Kharkiv, in Odessa, in various other regions. So all of this is going on. And today I'm going to be speaking to a teacher called Anastasiia Skliarenko. I'm just waiting for her to send me a request. Not sure if I've seen her yet. 1 second. Hello to everyone who's joining, by the way. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I've just seen Dive and Learn. Yeah, so Anastasiia, you need to ask to join, okay? Or maybe you've done that already. Let me see. Oh, you've done it already. I'm sorry. So give me a minute just to accept. By the way, thank you so much. Let me try again. That looks like it's working my end. Hey!
Hey, Hugh.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Same old, But, all the Easter celebrations in Ukraine are over now, and we can kind of, breathe out and relax a little bit
Yeah,
and start working normally. And how
yeah.
have you been?
I can't complain. I'm sitting in the safety of North London. I had a day off yesterday. I went for a big long walk with my son through West London, walking along the
Cool.
underground lines, this weird little project we're doing.
Wow.
And today I'm doing this, and then I have to go and pick my wife up from a pottery festival in the south coast, on the south coast.
Pottery
So
festival.
busy
Wow.
but fine. Busy but fine.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. My daughter has been doing pottery on her birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How old's your daughter?
She's 8.
Okay, she's called Mia, yeah?
Yeah, she's called
Okay.
Mia. Yeah.
And my daughter's called Maya. So, similar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, so do you want to just begin, I guess, by just sort of saying a bit about yourself, where you're based now, where you're from, where you grew
Sure,
up, your
sure,
kind of your
sure.
family roots, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So I grew up in the south of Ukraine in a small town next to the Azov Sea. And this is the thing that I miss the most right now. Unfortunately, I can't visit these territories now, but this is the geographical feature I miss the most is the Azov Sea. So I was surrounded by worms, by worms of the sea, of the climate, and of my family.
And just
Um,
just for people who don't know, the Azov Sea is kind of at the top of the Black Sea, right? It's the bit
yeah,
kind of near where Mariupol
yeah,
was and
yeah, yeah.
out there.
It's like 3 hour drive from Mariupol, but the closest biggest city is Zaporizhia, but
Okay.
it's around like 1 hour and a half drive, yeah, from my hometown. Yeah. But now I'm in Lviv and I have been living in Lviv for the last 16, 17 years. Yeah, so as for my student years, I was supposed to study in Horlivka Pedagogical University, which is located in Donetsk region. But my plans changed, and I ended up studying English in Melitopol. This is the city where I spend a lot of time with my colleagues, with my group mates, with so many people now, and well, still live there. Some of my friends and family members still
Yeah,
live there. And in my hometown as well. That's why I'd rather not say the name of the
I
town. Yeah.
understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
but as for Melitopol, probably most of Ukrainians will know this city because of watermelons and sweet cherries that we grow there, and it's kind of symbol of this city. So yeah. So I the thing that I should have studied there in Donetsk region and I didn't. Yeah, I think it's quite symbolic. If I had graduated from that university, I would have stayed there and I would be living in Donetsk region right
Yeah,
now. But so, and now in hindsight, when I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of like wondering what my life could have been and what I would be doing right now, English or, it's a mystery. So everything that happens is for the reason, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I also have friends who are still living under occupation in Melitopol as well.
You
And
have friends there.
yeah,
Okay. Are you
yeah.
in contact?
We're still in contact, not regularly, and I know it's not easy, and I know they're
Yeah,
very paranoid about, cleaning your phones
that's
all
the,
the time
that's
and
true.
making sure your messages aren't intercepted and all of that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. You know what? Just 15 minutes ago, I was talking to one of my relative, and I'm very close to this person, and we get the chance to talk maybe once per couple of weeks, sometimes more, sometimes less, it depends. But, and I told her that I will be doing live with you. And she is not much into English study, she doesn't speak any English. But I asked her, do you want me to pass some message from the occupied territories during this live? Because obviously a lot of people will be watching
Yeah,
from various
yeah,
countries. She said, yes, I actually want you to tell something, that we are still waiting for our soldiers to free this
yeah.
territory because the conditions they are living under right now is even hard to explain and to describe it. You just have to be there to understand how it is to live under occupation. I don't think anyone would want to know actually how it looks like. So that's her message, and I'm so happy I'm able actually to pass it on to the
Thank you.
world.
which is exactly what my friends in Melitopol also say, which is, you know, there's still this very strong belief in the idea that at some point the territories will be deoccupied and that sometime at some point the Russians will leave. But I think what you said about people not understanding what life under occupation is like is, you know, obviously access to the occupied territories is very restricted. The Russians produce their own propaganda about, you know, how wonderful life now is for the people in the newly liberated territories, etc. I mean, what I see and hear happening is the kind of complete erasure of Ukrainian as an identity, people being forced to take Russian passports if they want access to any services,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
torture
Insurance
camps,
as
people
well.
being disappeared, people being moved to the middle of nowhere in Russia, Russians being moved into the occupied territories to kind of Russify places, you know, kids getting brainwashed in the schools,
Oh my God,
kids
yeah,
getting
yeah.
militarized.
And the thing is that the people living under occupation, they don't have any other choice. There are no other schools, you know.
Yeah,
If we here, we have a choice, okay, we have dozens of schools and we can choose where to send our kids to what school. Yeah, but there's only one school in my hometown. So my friends, kids, they go to that school now and
yeah,
nothing can be done. Okay, I sometimes see photos from, you know, different celebrations at my school and I'm like, oh my God, this is my school. I've been there for so many years and it looks different. I don't think it looks better, of course, but you know what? Very interesting fact about my school. It has been renovated by the time the school went under occupation and the whole town. And my school, it's a small town, but there were 3D printers in my school, some new technologies, modern tools. And when the Russians came, they were so shocked by what they saw. They thought that like some small town, you
yeah,
know, nothing can be found there, you know. But they were shocked, literally, and of course they liked what they saw and they took it and they use it now. It's such a pity that they are using everything that had been given by another country,
yeah.
sponsored by some other organizations, not only by the state but by sponsors as well. Well, it is what it is anyway.
And so the area that you grew up in was an area that was occupied early during the full-scale invasion, right?
Early, yeah, like in the first three
In the first
days of
3 days.
when the war started. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, for example, another of my relative, he used to live in Berdyansk. This is like a 3-hour drive from my hometown. And when the war started, yeah, he called me at 6 a.m. The very day the war started. I was still sleeping in Lviv, okay? We didn't know anything that was happening. He called me at 6 a.m. and I thought, when I saw his phone, his name on my phone screen, yeah, I was like, okay, something must have happened. And he told me, look, the war has started. And he didn't know what to do because in Berdyansk it started earlier, and then in a couple of hours they moved to my
Yeah,
hometown. So it
yeah,
started the first day or second day of the war. Yeah, and I told him, you just grab your family and you come here to me to live immediately. And he did that. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And when you were growing up, did you grow up in a Russian-speaking family? I'm guessing
Absolutely.
up in
Yes.
that region. I mean,
Yes.
it's traditionally quite Russian-speaking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all of that region is Russian speaking. Apart from the fact that there are small villages
Where they speak
where
Turkic.
yeah,
Yeah,
where people spoke Ukrainian
yeah,
mostly, but just maybe in the area where I grew up, maybe like 2 3 villages like that. And the area where I grew up, it's quite multicultural because there were villages, for example, where a lot of
yeah,
Bulgarians used to live. Yeah, Albanians also, and they spoke Bulgarian and the
yeah,
other languages. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
would say 95% of population spoke Russian.
yeah. And so when you see people like Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy to Moscow, talking about how people in those regions speak Russian, and therefore somehow that means they're, somehow pro-Russian. How does that make you feel as a Ukrainian who grew up with a Russian-speaking family?
Mhm. Mhm. So apparently, when we were all at school, yeah, we had Ukrainian classes, like 3-4 times per week. Ukrainian language, Ukrainian literature, and cultural traditions as well. I attended musical school where we all the songs we sang were in Ukrainian, and this
Okay.
is true. This is true. Yeah, it's quite surprising now when I think about it. I don't know why, but we had this repertoire Ukrainian mostly, and we have a lot of traditions connected with singing songs in
Yeah.
Ukraine, and
Yeah.
we kept those traditions back there. And when I entered the university, yeah, I was studying to become a translator, English and German translator. The teachers at the university actually told, well, they didn't care much about the language, but I cared at that point. And I said, guys, I'm going to translate into Ukrainian. They said, okay, you do whatever you want, but we will not force other students to use Ukrainian, which was quite shocking to me at that time. But, I'm just a simple student. I wouldn't argue with teachers, professors and teachers. But that was a sign, of Russian language prevailing in that society. But it doesn't mean that we are Russians, okay? Different territory, different culture, different language. People all could speak Ukrainian, like everybody could speak Ukrainian on that territory. So yeah, the thing that you said is sorry, bullshit.
It's fine to use this word when describing
Okay.
these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it needs to be called out for the bullshit it is. And I've always just been amazed by how seductive to foreign audiences that kind of bullshit seems to be. I mean, I've had English friends of mine. I mean, friends who've spent time in like Jamaica and Ireland and places telling me that, ethnic Russians in Ukraine identify with Russia because they speak Russian. And for me, it's just like when you go to Ireland,
Yeah.
right, where they speak English,
I've been there, by the way.
do you think of them as ethnically English because they speak
No, of
English?
course not.
And
Of
it's
course
just so
not.
insane, and it's such a kind of failure to understand. I guess one thing Russia's been very clever at doing over the years is hiding the fact it was an empire. And I think because it was kind of like one contiguous landmass, people were kind of tricked into this idea that it wasn't an empire, whereas like our empire was scattered all over the world in different places. And so it was easier to understand as an empire. And I think for a lot of people in the West, there's still a kind of complete failure to understand that, the reason people speak Russian in Moldova or Donetsk or Odessa or Kazakhstan is, it's not because they politically identify with Moscow, it's because they were colonized. And it just seems incredible to me that there's still that lack of understanding about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know what? It's quite symbolic that today it's a Remembrance Day in Ukraine. From 27th to 29th, officially it's a Remembrance Day when we remember the deceased ones, the family members who died. And traditionally, I would be at the cemetery now if I were there in my hometown.
Yeah.
I don't have any relatives buried here in Lviv. So uh, all I can think of today is my desire to be there, to visit the graves of my parents who I lost during the war. And I wasn't able to attend their funerals because the city is under occupation. And my grandparents um, as well, and many other relatives. And very often this day, the Remembrance Day, it's where all the family would come together, and it would be maybe the only chance during the year to see everybody, because everybody's busy living in different
Yeah.
cities, and it was such a special time for me, and we actually would take Easter bread, which was baked second time, traditionally on Saturday, to bring it on Sunday to the cemetery. Easter bread and candies, and give it to the people. Kinda give it to the people who died. Put on their on the graveyard there. And kids liked this because they would collect candies after everything is over. And now I just, this is the grief that will be with me forever, the absence, yeah, because I am absent, yeah, I'm not there. So today I texted two of my relatives that if they are there at the cemetery, so could they please go and just visit my parents and my grandparents, which they said they would
You
do.
said that both your parents died after the
Yes.
full-scale occupation, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, both of them. Yeah,
But,
yeah.
so you weren't
Not
able to
because
go
they
to...
were killed by the Russians. No, no, no. But you know, they were quite old
Yeah,
and diseases. You know, just yeah. But you know, people might assume that something else might have happened, as because you said a lot of people get, captured and sent
yeah.
somewhere, or just nobody knows where they are.
But I guess you also have this whole other level of pain and punishment, in a sense, where if you've still got family and relatives who are in the occupied territories and they get ill or they die, if you're in the unoccupied areas of Ukraine, you can't visit, you can't go to the funerals, you can't go
Absolutely.
back to where you're from.
Yeah. Yeah, the distance, this is the biggest issue now, and you can't access those territories. But well, you can. But me, with the passport given to me in Lviv, you mean? Can you imagine me
Mm.
coming over with a passport, Ukrainian passport, from the western
Yeah,
part of Ukraine,
yeah,
going
yeah,
back
yeah,
to my hometown? I would never leave it.
yeah,
I would probably stay there and interrogated for hours and
yeah,
hours, and they would never let me leave that
yeah,
territory again.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm so sorry you had that experience.
Yeah,
So you were saying that one of the things you wanted to talk about a little bit more was just kind of this whole issue of war fatigue and living under the kind of constant
yeah,
threat and what that does to you, and how it sort of becomes normalized, but what becomes normalized isn't what was normal before.
absolutely. But I guess our bodies just get used to living under constant threat. And this is uh, obvious when I talk to my friends, for example, living in Dnipro or in Kharkiv, or my students. I always have students from Dnipro, Kharkiv, Odessa all the
Yeah,
time, and even some other cities which are closer to the front line. And they always attend classes, and sometimes I might just get this message: oh, I'm sorry, we are under attack, I need to go to the shelter. I'm like, oh, of course, you do whatever, you don't need to tell me, you just leave, guys, just without the warning. And but some of them just never do this,
yeah,
because they say, look, if we had to go to the shelter every time we were under the attack, we would stop living our life, and
yeah,
we would just go back and forth to the shelter and back. And this is how this is why we just become numb to the effects of war.
yeah,
And I think it's terrifying to realize that our brain and our body does not react like we used to in the beginning of the war. I don't know, maybe it's even for good, because otherwise we would be living in the constant
yeah.
state of stress.
I was surprised when I was in Kharkiv earlier this
Yeah,
month. I was surprised by how quickly I adapted just to fairly constant air raid sirens all the time. I mean, it was just like, when I've been in Lviv or in Kiev, um, there's been air raid alerts, but generally you don't hear it in the streets. In Kharkiv, they've got these speakers everywhere, and you just hear it.
sure.
And I kind of, first time I was outside and this happened, it was like the first day I was there, and you immediately kind of think, oh, I should go to a shelter or something. But then I look around and I see what everyone else is doing, and people are walking their dogs
Yeah,
and pushing their babies along in their prams. And so you kind of go, Ah, okay.
I'll do what they do. Yeah,
I'll
do
just do what
nothing.
they
Right.
do and follow
Hmm.
them. And like by the second day, it's almost just you don't notice it. You know, you just kind of fuck them. You know, you just carry on with your day, and unless there's a warning saying something's very
Yeah,
specifically coming near you,
that's
people
true.
just
And I remember you in being in Kiev at the
yeah
conference, which I attended as well. And I was so surprised you were filming. You put up a reel
yeah
of
yeah
the siren going off in Kiev, and the streets were actually quite empty. But it was a weekend or some, yeah, yeah. And but you were there standing, and I was so shocked because usually we would go to the shelter under if we are under such a heavy, massive. It was quite massive attack that
yeah. It
day
was a
in
big one that
Kiev.
day.
Yeah, yeah. But you told me that you had some other more threatening situations in London, even, right?
Well, you know, I've travelled a lot,
Yeah,
and I didn't feel directly and immediately under threat in a weird way, you know. And I think I guess Ukrainians must feel it all the time
yeah,
that there's a weird feeling of like a lottery or something. It's like if your number's up, then your number's up. There's nothing you can do about it. If you're going to respond every time there's an air raid, you're never going to live your
yeah.
life. You don't want your life to be controlled by what Muscovy decides for you.
That's
So,
true.
you
That's
know,
true.
you just learn to kind of live with the you kind of do the maths in your head in a strange way. It's like, okay, it's a big city. They might send 12 missiles. What are the chances of it landing here?
Yeah.
Pretty low. Carry on with my life.
Or there is always another chance, which a lot of Ukrainians took and left the
Yeah,
country. Yeah. There's some of my friends, very close friends from the occupied territories, they lost everything,
yeah,
like everything. And came first they some of them were spending some time in my apartment here in Lviv, and then they went further to other countries, and they were really shocked because they've seen more than we have seen here in Lviv when
yeah,
the war started in the occupied territories.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus been living, and some of them lived under occupation for 3 6 months and then decided to leave. And I don't blame them for leaving. I don't know how I would have
yeah.
reacted if I was there. So that's also, yeah, the choice some
And
Ukrainians.
what took you to Lviv originally?
it's, a, it's a long story. Um, so I met my husband online back
Okay.
then. When my students tell me, but when did you meet him? I'm like,
Oh, was this like
when the
ICQ or something? Was
yes,
it? Yeah.
how do you know that? Yeah,
See, I
I
know
said
this stuff.
yeah,
Um,
I tell my friends like I met him when the internet still did not exist. Yeah, so long ago. So yeah, and I stayed here, and I never regretted this decision. Never regretted. When you talked about living your life, despite all the attacks and hits and strikes, uh, it's easy to talk like that when you're adult, but when you're a kid or when you have kids, yeah, the prospects and the situation changes completely. And me being a mother, living in Lviv, relatively safe city, okay, I'm still very worried when the siren goes off, yeah, and we get this notification from school. Ukraine is under attack now. Don't worry, your kids are in the shelter now. We get these notifications every time the
yeah,
siren goes off, yeah, and children react to this, but I think they are more, like they are more silent about it. They not always can express what they think is happening and what they feel, and we need to pay attention to our kids' mental
yeah,
health. It's so important. Otherwise, they will be all well, they are all traumatized. It's the truth. It's a truth. Some of them more, some of them less. But when I look at kids living in Kherson, for
yeah,
example, which is under attack 2 3 times per day,
yeah, yeah,
every day, I I I don't know how they do this. Okay, how these parents do this, I have no idea. But on the other side, everybody can't just move. Okay, everybody can't just leave Kherson and the city will be empty. That's impossible.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also know people living in Kherson, and we've talked a lot about, you know, why do you stay there? And it's basically a kind of very well. I think one, sometimes they've got like grandparents or whatever and they can't leave.
Yes.
But there's also a very strong feeling of, well, if we all leave, then the Russians just take it, you know, and it's like, it's our city. Why should we leave it? You
Yeah.
know, they should leave. Well, why should we leave?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, so I understand that as well. I mean, it's very easy to imagine hypothetically, but I mean, my own grandparents stayed in London all through the Blitz during the
Hmm.
Second World War,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. They didn't leave.
you know,
Yeah.
they didn't leave, and it was like, if you want us out of the city, you have to bomb us out of it directly. And they were very, very, like a lot of Londoners of that generation, they were very stubborn about it, I think. And it was like, you know, our city, our homes, we stay here. You can do what you want, but we're not going anywhere. And I think that's very deep in human nature generally, that kind of stubbornness and resistance.
Yeah, but if you have your home, yeah, you've built it. For example, like my father did, he built the house where I grew up, okay,
Yeah,
with his own hands. And I was helping him. I remember being a kid and helping him build, well, whatever I could do at that time. I was about 7 years old. And we were constructing that house from scratch, from zero. And of course, they didn't leave. Yeah, they also had a chance to leave, but they
yeah,
stayed. Okay, and I don't blame them at all.
yeah, yeah. And so you were saying that there was I mean, there was the big attack in Lviv last year, wasn't there? What
Yeah,
was it?
yeah. It was
September sometime.
September the 4th. Yeah, a lot of, well, there is such an opinion among Ukrainians that Lviv is a relatively safe city, and I
Yeah,
agree. I agree
yeah,
with this because we don't have many sirens these days. But it was different in the beginning of the war. I remember going to the shelter 5 times per day and all the lessons interrupted, all the school. It was such a mess, and it was so chaotic at that time. But now it's stabilized, of course. But on September the 4th, Lviv was hit hard. There was around seven, if I'm not mistaken, seven missiles and four drone hits in our city. And two of them were very close to where I live now. It's like a 2-minute walk. And now every day when I pass this building, which suffered, um, the top floor basically gone of the block of flats. I see it, and it's a constant reminder of what our neighbors are doing to us. Yeah, and unfortunately, we were not in the shelter by the time the missile was, missile strike. And my daughter experienced everything, the building shaking, windows smashing and stuff like that. We were in the bathroom hiding, and since then, she's never slept well one single night. She has major sleeping issues right now. She can't sleep alone in her room. She always sleeps with me and my husband in our bedroom. And that's, I think that's, so this situation due to that attack. That's why I'm trying to do whatever I can to make her life better and happier and ease this stress. So I'm a avid traveler. I travel a lot with her. I try to take her for a longer period of time abroad to some nice, warm, stable, peaceful country. And even there, when we are there, having as much fun as we can and going to the beach and stuff. And she's telling me, Mom, but we will come back and nothing has changed in Ukraine. I said, yes, we will. But let's enjoy this time that we are having now. And she before going to bed, she's talking all the time, asking me questions. Mom, why Ukraine? Why us? What have we done? Why Ukraine? And I don't have answers to that. I don't. This is the worst.
How do you deal with those conversations?
Try to, well, to the, it's different. It's difficult, different. Usually she talks about that before going to bed. Um, I try to answer those questions as well as I can, telling her some facts from history, okay, telling she doesn't understand the word propaganda yet.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult for me to explain this fact to her. And she, you know, she being attached to her grandparents, my parents, the deceased parents, I mean, they spoke Russian to her all the time. And she spoke, actually, when she was young, she also spoke Russian to them. She knew Russian, but now she doesn't speak it at
Yeah.
all. And she knows that they spoke Russian, that they couldn't be evil to her because they were her grandparents. And it's so controversial, all this stuff now, that sometimes my mind just, you know, is ready to explode.
And do you find that dealing with students' kind of mental health and mental well-being is also kind of impacting your own teaching and working with the students you're working with?
Yeah, you know what? I think there's been a shift, maybe around a year ago, which happened a year ago, where students now we can talk about the war, we can talk about the attacks, we can talk about casualties. But 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, it was so painful, and we tried to avoid that topic during the classes. I remember that my managers from the school I used to work for telling us, you know, instructing teachers not to talk much about the war because people are already stressed. Why would we
Yeah.
stress them more? We should, this 90 minutes or 60 minutes of English lesson, it's their
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
actually forget about the war.
Yeah.
And that's what we tried to do. But about a year ago, this has changed. And this is also the effect of being numb to the effects of war. So we can easily discuss these topics during the lessons now.
Yeah. I mean, I remember quite early on where I wasn't quite sure how to deal with what my students were experiencing, and having a lot of Ukrainians in my groups. And sometimes students would want to talk about things they'd experienced, but other Ukrainian students in the group would say, "Can we please just not talk
Yeah,
about this? I just come here for a half an hour of sanity away from
yeah,
everything."
you,
And
you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I understand that different people have different needs and different requirements, and some people just need to escape for an hour, whereas for some people it's kind of, I need to offload and I need to process and I need
Yes,
to share.
yes. It's so different. Like we have the film industry in Ukraine. They are producing so many films about the war, occupation, Bucha stuff, and a lot of great movies. But honestly, I'll be honest, I can't watch these
Yeah,
films.
yeah. I mean,
It's so
yeah,
painful for me that I'm telling to myself, okay, I've had enough of all this negativity, constant negativity for 3.5 years
yeah,
already. I just want more positivity in my life, something that will not remind me about the war, because I keep thinking about it every day, about my parents and my friends, who my best friend, for example, she still lives under occupation, and she's given birth to her second child, and I haven't seen this person, and I am a godmother of her firstborn kid, and I'm shattered, you know, by these facts.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
I often think, I mean, I'm very conscious of the way it's impacted me, even being here in the UK. But, as someone with kind of long historical connections to Ukraine and to Russia and to Belarus and all of these kind of countries, I think it's inevitable that it would kind of impact me. But I sometimes feel the same. Like, how do you switch off from it, and how do you stop checking Telegram every hour, and how do you
oh,
you know
yeah,
how do you just allow yourself to feel some simple pleasures in things, and things that I've always loved doing, like listening to music. I can't quite do in the same way as I used to. I mean, I still try and listen to music to help me unwind and relax and stuff, but I can't quite do it in the way that I used to be able to. And I often think, well, if I feel like this, how the hell must somebody in Kharkiv or Kherson or Dnipro or something feel?
yeah.
It must be magnified many, many times for lots of people.
Yeah, I have a recipe for that. And
Okay,
I also want to say
tell me.
that, yeah, that a lot of, when the war started and even while the COVID-19 pandemic was happening, the need for English learning has raised
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
And when the war started, this actually motivated so many people to start learning the language. And I think that's one of the things that you can do being under stress.
yeah,
You can start learning a new language. For example, my second attempt to learn Italian. So
yeah,
I'm learning Italian now, okay, and I see that my students again. Being engaged in this English language community, videos, tasks, written assignments, they forget about the war
yeah,
and the stress they're under. I think it's one of the things you can do
yeah,
is to start learning something new, not necessarily the language, but learning a new language is really good for your
yeah.
brain. It can protect you from Alzheimer's in
Yeah.
the later
This is
days.
what I'm hoping.
I'm constantly thinking about that. Yeah, yeah. Like if I learn another language, I won't get Alzheimer's in the future. But yeah, well, it's a joke, but it's true. And traveling. Traveling is what I do to switch off completely from negative
Yeah,
thoughts. And plus, getting to know all these people, meeting so many foreigners who are so worried about Ukrainians. So, for example, really simple example, I've been to Tenerife a couple of months ago, and I met this amazing person. She's a Spanish lady. Her name is Sylvia, and it was just an Airbnb, just Airbnb experience. I just booked an apartment, but I got the whole experience of living life with Sylvia. She met me at the airport with my daughter, and I was like, Sylvia, you don't have to. No, you're a mother. You're in a new country. Country is at war. We talked about war, and of course, she said, you can come to Tenerife anytime you want. I will host you if something terrible happens. This is your second home. I met her mother, her neighbors. It was such a nice Spanish-like community, and I became friends with her. And this happens all the time, not every time, but yeah. And it broadens your horizons.
yeah,
And by the way, I've met so many people, British people, coming to Ukraine to volunteer. And I
yeah,
also wanted to tell you that I am amazed by how many people, foreigners who basically have no ties with Ukraine. You said you have ties with Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus,
yeah,
yeah? But they have absolutely no ties. They were watching the
yeah,
news. They thought, okay, I have to go and do something. And they came, and one of these people is my very good friend. He's from Manchester, and he's been here in Odessa. He's basically based in Odessa and go doing regular trips to Kherson, to other frontline cities, help with anti-drone tools and machines, and volunteering every day to feed people and feed children of Kherson and Odessa region.
yeah,
And it's so difficult for me to understand that these people basically left everything there in Britain and just changed their life completely, coming here to volunteer. And I'm so grateful to these people and to you, Hugh, for doing these lives, for supporting Ukraine, for posting continuously about the situation in Ukraine.
I guess, like most people, I always feel I'm not doing enough, but um,
I think you're doing more than enough.
uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you do what you can, but I'm sure most people who do what they can still feel that they should be doing more. But yeah, I mean, when I was up in Kharkiv, there was a center for kind of housing older people who'd been basically, they'd lost their houses because of the war,
Displaced, yeah.
displaced people. And I met this amazing woman called Olha, and she'd set up this center for these old people. And one of the guys who was volunteering there was a young English lad called Jago. And we got talking, and similar story. It was basically just like his brother had been in the Royal Marines,
Wow.
and he was watching the news early on, and he just thought, this is just wrong, and I need to do something. And he waited 2 years because he was in the middle of doing various things in the UK, and then the last 6 months he's been volunteering up there. So I know he follows me. So if you're watching, Jago, hello. Thank you for everything you do. And yeah, it was just amazing. And there was an old retired Swedish doctor who was up there, and she was helping kind of with rehabilitation work and therapy work and everything. And you realize there are thousands and thousands of people over there volunteering and helping.
That's true. That's true. Just yesterday, that friend of mine from Manchester was telling me he was supervising this new volunteer from China. Jesus, from China, like people all come all the way down to Ukraine. It's so you know, Hugh, how difficult it is to get to
Yeah.
Ukraine. No planes, and you have to switch transport. And but the person coming from China, I was asking like, what is he doing here? He doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak any Ukrainian or Russian, of course. And I'm like, how is he going to? And he said he has a translator. I'm like, what kind of translator? Like a phone, like looks like a phone, and you just speak and it translates immediately. So he came here to donate money and blood. He's been given a blood
Wow.
in blood
Wow.
centers.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I mean, isn't it incredible, Hugh? And his name is Mr. Hugh, by the way. You're the
Really?
Chinese person.
Oh,
Yeah.
my Chinese cousin.
Yeah, probably. So people from all over the world coming here, and wow, no
And
words.
can I ask you, after what you were saying about your daughter, um, have you ever thought yourself about leaving at any point, given what you've been living through and what your daughter's
Mm-hmm.
experienced?
Yeah, of course, these thoughts have entered my mind. And the first offer came from my husband when the war has just started. His company, the IT company he's working for, they offered to evacuate basically wives and children of their workers. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. No, some people are coming over to my apartment, like from other dangerous parts of Ukraine. We hosted so many people in the first year of the war. I don't even know how many in here in this apartment. And of course, I've been thinking about that as some of my friends left Ukraine, and I was feeling quite lonely without my friends here. I'm very sociable. I need people. I need communication. But then I thought, look, we haven't lost a house or a car or anything.
Yeah.
We are still relatively safe. My daughter is attending this bilingual school, like English and Ukrainian school. Where can I find that school like
Right.
that, where they teach Ukrainian
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
German or Spanish, okay, but Ukrainian. I need her to know this language. Yeah. Well, I'm working remotely now, but at the time I was working in the office also in Lviv. So I was thinking like, okay, I have to leave my work and maybe find some other place of work. So I think every time I thought about leaving, I found so many reasons not to.
Yeah.
And that's why I stayed.
So I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind me
Sure.
asking, and feel free if you don't want to answer any of them. Given that you were from the part of Ukraine that you're from and that you grew up in a Russian speaking family, I wondered if you had still or used to have friends or family who were on the other side of the border in Russia.
Sure. My family uh, still has a lot of relatives in Moscow region, and of course a lot of, not a lot of, maybe like 5 or 6 people in Donetsk region, but we are not in contact with these people. To be honest, my friends mostly kept in touch with people from Moscow region. It's my father's relatives. He used to communicate, not very often, but just some frequent, not frequent, but rare calls with them. I never was quite close to those people, but anyway, they're family. And I have a sister. She's originally from my cousin. She's originally from Donetsk region, and she moved to Israel, for example. I keep in touch with her, but the people who are in Donetsk region, no
Yeah.
contact.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess the last thing I wanted to really ask is, how are you feeling, and how are the people around you feeling about the coming weeks and months? Because, it's a very strange time in the war at the moment, where we're watching Trump essentially acting as Putin's messenger boy, and the Americans kind of, I would love to say just withdrawing from the process, but I don't actually think that's what they're doing. I think they're kind of actively siding with Russia, and we're in this very strange point with everything. And obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure, particularly from the US, on Ukraine to kind of
Make
make a deal,
a deal,
take
yeah,
the deal.
finally make a deal. Yeah. You know what? I've been attending an event which is connected to your question, Hugh. Just day before yesterday, I was attending a volunteer event. There is this person called Rob, and he's a volunteer from the States, and he organizes charity dinners in Lviv here. Part of the money we pay goes to the front
Yeah,
line, and there were very interesting gatherings of people at his events. As he's American, there are a lot of Americans
yeah,
attending these events. So there were 3 Americans at the last event I attended with all of my family. We were making Italian pasta. This volunteer, he happens to be a chef as
okay,
well, military and a chef. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And I talked to one of the guy from San Francisco. He came to Ukraine when the war started. I don't know why he came, but he came to Kharkiv, by the way, and then he moved to Lviv. And he started talking about politics. I never touched that subject, but he started talking about it, blaming Trump and accusing him a lot. So that's what all of my other friends are doing. We are basically appalled and shocked by what is happening now in the political scene. Sometimes
same.
sometimes it feels like the main decisions are, made without Ukraine being
Yeah,
involved at all in those
yeah,
decisions, and we feel
yeah,
helpless, absolutely, being ignored by everyone else, though most of the people, yeah, suffered and killed and died here in our country, not in other
yeah.
countries.
And do you have any hope or faith in the idea of a deal being possible, or?
Oh, it depends on what kind of deal, yeah, what points will be included, and whether they will want to return the occupied territories, at least Zaporizhia region and Kherson region, yeah, and part of Kharkiv region. I'm not even talking about Crimea. I don't think that is possible at this moment. I don't think so. But I would really love to wake up one day, being able just to take a train like I used to from Lviv to the train was from Lviv to Simferopol, in the
Yeah,
capital of Crimea. Yeah, from
yeah.
Lviv to Melitopol, and just being able to visit my native town. So it's so hard to say. To be honest, I keep thinking that we are such a small people, and we don't know even half of what is happening there on top. That's why it's so difficult for me to judge about the prospect of the deal. Hopefully, yeah, I think that's gonna happen, but not soon, in my opinion, not soon.
I hear you. I mean, I think there has to be a reason for Russia to feel like it needs to make peace, and until Russia itself experiences more pain of various kinds, there's no reason why they will stop, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, lack
And
of ammunition and everything they get from other countries as well. They
yeah,
don't have this, they don't feel this lack now. They have everything they need.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I watch a lot of kind of commentary and stuff on it, and there seems to be a general consensus that sometime in the next year it's going to start getting really difficult for
For
them,
them.
because for them,
Hmm. Hmm.
because the economy's basically, it's a wartime economy. It's everything's built around, the kind of wartime economy, and that's going to impact all the other areas of the country, and it's going to, banks are going to start collapsing, but we'll see, because I know people have been talking about this for a year already. and
So
saying,
many years, actually. But look, Hugh, so I'm in touch with people living in under occupation and consuming all the Russian products and driving their cars. Not their cars. The cars are still, they still get imported, and um, I don't see any big issues there right now.
yeah,
Yes, the prices have gone up. That's the only thing.
yeah,
They have still access to everything, basically the same products, just made in Russia. For example, if I talk about food, yeah, and self-care products, different brands, but they no problems
yeah,
getting
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
cars, luxury items, iPhones. I remember when we were thinking, oh, soon they won't be able to buy phones and everything's going to change. No, nothing has changed. They still use them, buy them, import them. And
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching a video with Lavrov ranting about the evil West whilst holding his iPhone, and it's
uh-huh,
like,
uh-huh. And maybe his children
yeah,
studying somewhere in
of
Cambridge.
course, living in
Y-
London probably somewhere,
Yes,
it just
yes,
makes me
yes.
sick, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick that they're allowed to stay here, given that their dad's doing all of this. And
Yeah, that's another topic for
for another
conversation.
day. And that's a problem we have in this country that we need to do more about. But the way the dirty money's kind of flowed into London,
Yeah.
it's at least we're talking about it now. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes. Freedom of speech,
yeah,
which we have and they don't have also.
indeed, indeed, and it's very well worth fighting for.
Sure.
Okay, I feel like I've taken up enough of your time, and I have to get myself ready to go down to the south
Collect
coast to
your
pick my wife up.
line. Yeah, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you so much for your time and for sharing your story and your experiences. And yeah, say hello to the volunteers, and I hope
Absolutely.
everything.
Next time you are in Odessa, he'll take you to his favorite pub for a pint.
Okay, I'll look forward to that. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Hugh, very much.
thank
I
you,
enjoyed this conversation a lot. I thought it would be quite, very difficult and painful, but you kind of eased all the pain. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
thank you, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!